Hello! Today I'm going to do a video of something I've seen a lot recently, top 5 favourite fictional cities. The problem with this is that there's just too many fictional cities to choose from. Then I went on BookTube and I watched some other people's videos and they put other things I hadn't thought of and I was like, wow! So I'm going to crack on. At number 5, Gormenghast, from the Gormenghast series by Mervyn Peake. I'm going to be really honest here, I haven't actually read the Gormenghast series. It is on my extended, long, at some point in the future TBR. I've watched the BBC adaptation, which was a 4-part mini-series. It was really amazing, and I know just generally stuff about Gormenghast. If you don't know, it's like a mini country. It's a bit like the Vatican City or something. It's all arranged just to serve the ruling family. Everything runs on traditions, it's someone's job to keep things running, and it's like a giant castle, but it's huge, it's so big because it houses so many people. And these people's jobs might be to do one thing one time a year, but it's part of this tradition that they have. It's in this big book that they have to follow, and the descriptions of it are amazing, and it was really, really well done in the BBC adaptation. I really want to read it to see what it's like because it's very gothic. It's also a really interesting concept that it's not like a city like anything else. It's just what a castle could be if you really tried. So moving on, at number 4, it's Minas Tirith from The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. So it's really hard to talk about The Lord of the Rings, the books, when you've got the films to compare to, so I'm kind of going to talk about them interchangeably. So Minas Tirith is stunning. It's actually more of a fortress. The main city of Gondor was Osgiliath, but that's kind of been destroyed by war. So Minas Tirith has taken over as the seat of Gondor itself. And it winds its way up a mountain. The mountain actually bisects the city in two and things go through this sort of outcrop of rock. Visually it's amazing, like they did it really good justice in the movie. And it's described really well in the books, like the white towers and the flags, and even though he says it's not as good as some other cities that were built like in Gondolin before the Third Age, it's still amazing. If you want a fictional fantasy city, that's the one, isn't it? Number 3, Elantris from Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. So Elantris was Brandon Sanderson's debut novel. He's become very famous in the fantasy world because of his Mistborn series and because he finished off The Wheel of Time. Years before the start of the book, Elantris was a wonderful city. The city seemed to glow from some supernatural energy, and the people living in it were normal people who had at one point in their lives awakened to find themselves with shimmering skin and very fine hair and magical powers. And then at some point before the book begins, something changed and the city started to rot. The glamour of the people started to fade, they became ill. What's quite grim is that the people living there would stop being able to heal, so if they broke a finger, their finger would remain broken and they'd still feel the pain from that broken finger forever. The city itself starts to rot, the stones break, the wood kind of rots and turns into a black mush, the paving of the streets becomes muddy and horrible, and people still from time to time wake up being called to be an Elantris citizen, but instead of waking up with nice skin and nice hair, they wake up with blotched skin and they kind of look ill and pale. And whereas the city was once a beacon of hope and magic and wonder, it's now this kind of pariah state. Concept-wise, it's really amazing. You can draw allegories to states and cities and countries that had a glamorous past and have now faded into obscurity, or worse. If you haven't read Elantris, it's a very good book. There's a lot of intrigue there, and I highly recommend it. My second favourite fictional city is Ankh-Morpork from the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. The Discworld books have a special place in my heart. Like, I love them, and they're one of the very few series of books that I will reread. Every time you read them, you can get something new from them, and what's very interesting is that the world is, or was, while Terry Pratchett was still alive, an ongoing saga. What I mean by that is that most settings in books remain the same. Like, the setting is the same, the place kind of is the same. You might have one thing that happens during the book or books, like an uprising or a famine or a war or something which changes the landscape. And during the course of 20 or 30 books in the Discworld universe, it changed quite a lot. Not just because Terry Pratchett wrote the books differently, but because he would revisit locations with new characters, and perhaps visibly it's most shown in Ankh-Morpork, which is the biggest and the most diverse city in Discworld. In the first few books, Ankh-Morpork is kind of a standard fictional fantasy town, but as more books were set in it, it developed quite a lot. You found out different things about it. For example, it got a newspaper which started up. Steam engines, the clacks, the bank were all modernised in specific books, but generally the feeling of it changed. You also learn a lot about the city. In different books you explore different aspects of the city, different places within it. And it's a very good city because not only is it well defined, but it changes as you read. And what's very nice is that you don't have to read the books specifically in order to feel this, but if you do, you really get a sense of the city evolving, and you don't often get that in literature. And my top favourite best fictional fantasy city is Gotham City from Batman. So I could talk about this for a very long time. I'm going to try not to. Gotham's a weird fictional city in that every writer of Batman, Detective Comics, Nightwing, anything in that universe can change Gotham. Every comic that comes out, every film, every TV series will impact how Gotham looks, which makes it a place of infinite opportunity. If as a writer you want an observatory, bang, you've got one. And if you want a specific church or hotel or library or theatre, you can write that in and it will still fit within the realms of the city. It's as much subject to the whims of the writers as it is the artists, who have been able to create intricate and amazing worlds within this city itself. And it kind of builds on what's been there before, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It's meant to be a bit gothic, but not everything necessarily has to be. It can be a very modern looking city, but there's different parts of the city. If you're a gamer, you've probably played the Batman Arkham games, which is an open world environment where you get to explore Gotham City. They've planned it all out, it looks amazing, there's different parts of it which all contribute to plot and storyline, but they still inhabit their own space confidently and with an amazing... I don't know where I'm going with that. For example, there's the museum, and at the back of the museum there's Penguin's Iceberg Lounge, and in the front there's the Bowery, which is a kind of underground shopping centre with a glass roof. Few places let you inhabit that world so completely, and I really encourage people who aren't gamers to find a walkthrough or a playthrough online of these games, because there's loads out there and you get to really see this city. One set of writers in particular I want to talk about, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, who have been at the helm of Batman comics for about 3 or 4 years. What's really nice about their Gotham is that they make a point of telling you specific things about it. It makes it feel like a real place when they're talking about Wayne Tower and the different gargoyles on it, which are meant to symbolise different things. And there's also a really good bit where they're talking about Old Town, which is all these colonial buildings which they want to take down and build skyscrapers up, but they can't because they're so old they're protected. And that neighbourhood features in one of the storylines, and all the buildings are completely different, but you see the skyscrapers in the background and it just feels real. And I think that's kind of the point of why I like Gotham so much. It feels real because everyone can make it as real as they want to. You can have the fantasy elements in there, but they're all grounded in this place which you think could feasibly be a place. And that's why it's my favourite city. It's expansive, it's detailed, and it can change and evolve depending on who's writing it. Those are my top 5 cities in literature. If you have any views about those you want to let me know about, please leave a comment or tweet me. Also, if you've made a video of your top 5 favourite cities, please leave a link in the comments. I'm really interested in seeing as many of these as possible because everyone's got their own views on it. Subscribe or give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!